This is Dr. Joel Grassi, and today we're going to be answering more of your questions as you and I go walking in the Word.
This is Walking in the Word Radio on AM 570 and 102.3 FM The Mission, WMCA.
Welcome back to Walking in the Word. I'm your host, Dr. Joel Grassi, pastor of the Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx in New York City. As always, I love to hear from each and every one of you. You can give us a phone call at 718-839-1000, and you can always visit our website and message us right through the website at www.commonwealthbronx.org. That's commonwealthbronx.org. And I want to begin by reminding everyone, and this is real exciting, the first issue of the Journal of the Institute for Biblical Apologetics is going to be out here really in just a few weeks. And I'm going to be announcing this. You'll be able to get it through our website. This is an exciting theological journal dealing with some very timely issues, and it's from an apologetic standpoint. And we're so thankful that this is going to be out very soon. You're going to want to have this in a physical copy, and it deals with some of the important issues that the William Tyndale Conference touched on recently. So that will be coming out soon. I want to also give a shout out to our friends at Bread's Bakery, and I know they were in the news recently, and there is just no better place to get chocolate babka that I can recommend to you as far as many chains of bakeries go than Bread's Bakery. They're all over Manhattan, and shout out to Gotti and Jonathan, who do a great job there, and I've known them for years and love Bread's Bakery. Appreciate when I need my chocolate babka fix or anything like that, that's the place to go. And it's interesting, I was walking down on East 12th Street today in Manhattan, and anytime I walk on East 12th Street, I walk past 120 East 12th Street, which right now is a dormitory of New York University, Founders Hall. But if you look it up, their Founders Hall or 120 East 12th Street, you'll see that it has this big church facade out front. And it was originally, dating back to the early 1800s, it was the meeting place of the 12th Street Baptist Church. And I just popped in to the foyer this morning and talked to the security guard there and asked him, is there any kind of memorial or plaque or historical marker acknowledging that this church facade, which they incorporated into the architecture of this new multi-million-dollar dormitory high-rise, is there any marker to acknowledge that it was once the 12th Street Baptist Church? And then, of course, it was also used as a synagogue, which is true of our church at Commonwealth. We were once a synagogue and are now a Baptist church. And it was even used as other church denominations there. And he said, no, there's no historical marker for it. And I thought, boy, that is a shame. That we don't have anything that passerbys can stop and realize that a historic church there, the 12th Street Baptist Church, has been in recent years converted into these NYU dormitories. So I think that's something we ought to think about, pray about, maybe get some movement going on that. I know that Mayor Mamdani is talking about getting more funds for affordable housing. And NYU, of course, is one of the largest landowners in New York City. They own much of Greenwich Village and don't pay any property tax. And so I think, a good start for that would be to get a memorial marker out there to acknowledge that there was a historic Baptist church there many years ago, going back to the days of Abraham Lincoln. And that would be a great heritage marker there for the history and the culture of our city. And a reminder that New York's a city of faith. And I know all of you are out there walking around New York. You're on the trains, you're on the highways, you're interacting with people as you go about your daily business. You're letting your light shine. And I pray and hope that God is blessing you as you do that. The Lord's testimony is everywhere. The earth, O Lord, is full of thy mercy. That's one of our theme verses here at Walking in the Word, and we're glad that we can see evidence of God's grace everywhere we look, even and especially around New York City. Now, you remember last time we dealt with the topic of being sworn into office on a book other than the Holy Bible. That was last episode, and you can look that up and find that on our podcast website there. Another question that had come in that I wanted to touch on briefly, and before I even get to these questions, I also want to mention we do have a special guest coming on the air toward the end of the episode. Our good friend Alex Garrett is going to be discussing some accessibility updates. I'm excited about this, and buckle up because we got some good information coming your way. But back to the topic at hand here. I love getting questions that come from listeners and those who maybe are reading different things on our website, and we're so thankful that people are spending time looking at some of the topics that we cover. So another question that came in was concerning, does the Apostle Paul hate women? And that's a fair question, I suppose. I suppose we could ask really any question that deals with biblical topics and try to get an answer to it. And, of course, I think this question is probably coming in relation to the Apostle Paul's statements on Eve, and also some of his instructions on gender roles, whether it be as it relates to the family or in the church, where Paul says, for instance, about Eve, where he makes the statement there in 1 Timothy 2, and we'll bring that up, where Paul says that Adam was not deceived, but Eve being deceived was in the transgression. And then later in other passages where Paul talks about gender roles and uses verbs like submit or keep silence or things like that, that might be where this question is coming from. Feel free to contact us again with any clarifications on this. But I want to start out by reminding us that when we say things like, did Paul believe this, or did Matthew care about things this way, or what was Moses' view on that? When we're talking about the words of Scripture, we are going beyond the human penman, and we're dealing with the reality that all Scripture is given by inspiration of God, and that the very words are God-breathed. So the Bible is both the Word of God and the Word of man, and so we're not merely dealing with a collection of what ancient writers thought or believed, or what their predispositions or prejudices were, but this is in fact the mind of God in the words of mankind there, originally Hebrew, Greek, Aramaic, we know that now in various translations. So when we look at here in some of these verses, for instance, and we've touched on this before, but in 1 Timothy 2, when the Apostle Paul says, let the woman learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. For Adam was first formed, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression. Notwithstanding, she shall be saved in childbearing if they continue in faith and charity and holiness with sobriety. I mean, certainly there's a lot in there that Paul is touching on, and he goes all the way back to the creation account, believing that it was historical. Obviously, he believes historically that Adam was first formed and then Eve. And just to touch on that part, when he goes on there and says that Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived was in the transgression, obviously we know that from a chronological standpoint, Eve was the first person actually to taste of the forbidden fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that technically speaking, her eyes would have been opened first, and then she gave to Adam, and then he ate. And the point I think that Paul is making there is that Eve was in fact deceived by the tempter, whereas Adam knew full well what he was doing and decided to fully rebel against God, not being, as it were, tricked or deceived into thinking that he was going to get something that was good from God. He knew that this was a disobedience to God, whereas Eve was allowed by Adam there to fall into this deception there. So I don't think Paul is saying something good about Adam and bad about Eve. I think really what he's doing there is just helping us to step back and see the big picture in this topic as to the chain of events. And technically, when he says Eve was in the transgression, she was technically the first one to cross the line. And ultimately, I think there's a messianic aspect here when Paul talks about this matter of ultimately the saving or the Savior coming through the seed or the childbearing there. But getting back to the earlier part of that same passage there, the context as Paul's about to turn the page from 1 Timothy 2 to 1 Timothy 3 is in the context of the local New Testament church. And so when you begin reading in 1 Timothy 2 and then you get over into 1 Timothy 3, Paul is clear about this, and we can't beat around the bush or apologize for him. I mean, this is indeed what he says here. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop then must be blameless, the husband of one wife, and he goes on there to give the qualifications. So whether it's in the roles that God gives in any of the institutions that he's given man to operate in stewardship responsibility, there are distinct gender roles, and these come from God. This ultimately is God's way of showing us his economy in this world. It is certainly, who would charge God with hating women or children or anyone else? Children have a stewardship and a submission responsibility to parents. It doesn't mean that the Lord hates them. It's simply this is the way that God has chosen to deal with people in this life and in this world. And I would encourage you, listener, to read my response to Carol Meyer's book. It's up on our website. If you go to commonwealthbronx.org, you can read my response to her book, Rediscovering Eve. And we deal with a lot of these in greater detail there. And I hope that'll be a help and a blessing to you. Now, to pivot to the last question before we bring Alex Garrett on to talk about the latest and the greatest on accessibility news here in New York, this question comes in and is near and dear, I guess, to my heart on a temporal, frivolous level. Does God have something against the New York Jets? And the person must know that I'm a Jets fan, as it can be called. I wonder if God has something against the New York Jets, or do the Jets have something against us? Might be the better question. And to be sure, yes, long-suffering Jets fan. Every which way that this team has found a way to break our hearts, so to speak, from a rooting standpoint, they have found a way to do it. And I've kind of just embraced it. I mean, I think there's a great energy and lifestyle that comes across with just watching this futility of it. It's really fascinating. And to actually try to turn this into a biblical answer and not just turn this into Mike and the Mad Dog or something, in a sense, and this answer might shock you, but in a sense, I would say that God does have something against the New York Jets. And I'm not talking about the individuals. I've actually met some of the personnel over the years. Wonderful, sweet people. I think obviously they're in a business like anyone else. Their business is football. But I'm just reminded that we can say in a sense that the National Football League is an American Idol. And I'm not coming from a standpoint of holier than thou. If anything, I'm coming from a standpoint of less holy than ye. But let's just be honest about this. Whether we watch football or whether it's like the most boring thing in the world to us, I think we all know it is such a big part of American culture. And it obviously represents wealth beyond what most of us can conceive. And it absolutely has taken over Sundays and Thanksgiving Day and now Christmas Day. I mean, the Sunday was once the Lord's Day, but now you've got football on Sunday mornings when they play overseas, and then those games are broadcast at like 9 a.m. or something. And then it's on 1 and 4 and 8, and then, of course, all day Thanksgiving and all day Christmas. And so in a sense, when we stop and look at this, I mean, football is a god. in this world, in our country. And we've really got to be careful that we, if we're sports fans, that we don't get caught up in this. And, it might be a good reminder to us that the Lord just kind of shows us again and again what a fool's errand it is to derive our happiness and our joy from something that is as temporary as a football game or a sports outing. Now, what's fascinating, back to Timothy and Paul's writings, and even in Corinthians, Paul does talk about these sporting events that were popular even in the Corinthian days. He mentions there in 1 Corinthians 9:24, "Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize?" And I believe Paul's talking there about those ancient Olympic Games in Greece, and people competed. And Paul's acknowledging it. And maybe Paul was rooting for one runner over another, for all I know. I don't really know. Paul talks about his thorn in the flesh. Maybe he was a Jets fan. I don't necessarily know. But certainly, we've just got to keep this in perspective. So we don't believe, biblically speaking, there's something as, a curse on a certain team, or that God, I remember I had a friend years ago who, and he was a pastor, and he was such a fan of the Dallas Cowboys that he was convinced not only were they America's team, but he told me, looking me straight in the eyes, he said, they're God's team. And I said, well, not really. God doesn't have a rooting interest, I don't think, in these things, but it's a reminder to us to whatever we do, whether we eat or drink or whether we play or run a race, that we are to do it to the glory of God, understanding that bodily exercise profiteth little, and that we're not running for a crown that perishes. That's what Paul says there. He says, now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. So as much effort as a football player puts into winning a Super Bowl championship, we ought to put that much effort into glorifying God and living for Him, because we're going to be able to have an eternal crown that we can cast at Jesus' feet, and nobody is going to bring the Lombardi trophy into heaven. And I would dare say that during the millennial reign of Christ, Sundays will return to be the Lord's Day again and will not be a day of football. So something to keep in mind there. All right, well, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but Parkchester in the Bronx finally got, after 100 years, finally got an elevator. And we have accessibility now, one stop from our church, which is something that we've been praying about and waiting for, and we're so thankful for. And as again, I've mentioned this before, when I invited my dear friend Alex to visit our church, the first question he asked me was, is it accessible? And the building is, but unfortunately the subway station is not. And so I want to bring Alex on and get us up to date, brother, on what are some of the happenings in the world of New York City accessibility.
All right. Well, first of all, Dr. Joel, great to have you back in the new year with us on MCA, and hope your new year's starting well. And I will say there are a couple things. Firstly, the elevator change is a great news, and it's happening around the other boroughs. There's stuff by my old home in Queens on Parsons Boulevard. So elevator upgrades are happening in 2026, which is great to see. And then also, the LIRR has reduced fare all throughout the day. So if you're a person with a disability that needs to commute at all hours, you get the reduced fare. That makes traveling so much less stressful and affordable for people with disabilities.
That's fantastic. And when you talk about the one by your old house in Queens, I mean, was that also a long time coming? And why
long time.
Why does it take so long?
Well, the funding needs to be secured, and the approvals. They can't just build an elevator. I think they're going to have city permits and other permits to make all this happen. So it does take a while to make all these things into fruition.
And is it the case that any new subway station or any new building is going to automatically have these built from the get-go? Is that how it is?
That would be great. I don't know how realistic that is, but that would be amazing. Now, I will offer your listeners this idea. If you want to know more about the MTA news, because we all travel around the city, they have an accessibility newsletter on the MTA website.
Okay, and is that something that you contribute to, or is that something that you're kind of you have your finger on the pulse of?
I'm just following it because I think it's important. If I want to do a story on my podcast about it, it helps me stay connected for sure to what's going on in the city for people with disabilities, traveling, and accessibility.
Now you're commuting into MCA from Long Island.
Yes, that is correct. Yep.
And is that an entirely accessible route for you, or do you have to contend with some stairs and whatnot along the way?
Oh, I mean, luckily they have elevators to Penn Station, and they have them up there. It's just navigating the morning rush crowds. That's you can't fix that. That's just part of the business. But I tell you what, since pandemic was about 6 years ago now, 5.5 years ago, I'm so glad to see the crowds are back out. And I'm sure you see it too in your travels. We're a crowded city again.
It does feel crowded again, yeah, and that's a good thing and an annoying thing, but more good than annoying because it is New York City, and I definitely love that we can see that. Now, are you still on your rollerblade?
Oh, yes, I've been rollerblading as every day, as always, so that's always fun, and I use the bike lane sometimes, and, I think traveling through the city on my wheels just gives me the sense of freedom that every day I feel that kind of freedom.
No, it's terrific. And I kind of segue that into, I got an update about our skate park, and it is continuing to jump every hurdle and get every green light and every stamp of approval it needs. So God willing, you and I will be out there at the Soundview Skate Park rolling around on our wheels. Hopefully. The
rolling pastor. I really love that, Dr. Joel.
Yeah. I know. Well, recently I was the slamming pastor because I ended up hanging up on a 5-0 grind on this little quarter pipe, and it pitched me to the concrete. And I think concrete is harder these days than it was when I started skating back in the 1980s. I don't know if I can prove that, but felt harder to me.
And I'm sure you've seen the skate evolve since the 80s. I mean, it's a different kind of breed now. There's more inline than anything else.
Oh, there's a whole lot of varieties now. I mean, yeah, in the 80s, you had Marty McFly, but, it's amazing. You still have Tony Hawk. I mean, I can't believe here's a guy, he's got to be pushing 60, and he's out there doing it. And we're so thankful that we've had the Tony Hawk Foundation involved in getting our skate park up and running, hopefully in the next couple years.
He's still doing it. It's pretty remarkable, and all those video games after him and all that. So, one thing you should do on the next episode or one of these episodes is tell us your story, how you got into radio, how you became a pastor. I mean, maybe people don't know your story, Dr. Joel.
I think that is a terrific idea, and let me mark that down here. We're going to do that. We got a minute left on this episode, so I can't do it today. But, Alex, thank you for coming on. Thanks for the good insight, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely, and your prayer work for the Giants. We got a new head coach. So John Harbaugh.
Okay, well, there you go. Pray for the Jets, I guess, still. But in the meantime, everyone, we want to thank you really for being part of our family here at Walking in the Word. If you want to contribute to our show so we can stay on the air, you can do that through our website as well. I can't thank you enough for the questions that come in, people that are asking different things. We love to take this to the airwaves. And again, we're on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on Spotify and everything else, but we're so glad that we can be here on WMCA. Once again, my name is Dr. Joel Grassi. I'm the pastor of the Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx. You can call us at 718-839-1000 or visit our website at commonwealthbronx.org. And I want to thank each and every one of you for spending this time with me today, walking in the Word.
You've been listening to Dr. Joel Grassi and Walking in the Word Radio, a ministry of Commonwealth Community Baptist Church of the Bronx, New York City. Call our church at 718-839-1000 or visit our website at www.commonwealthbronx.org.